and they shined a very negative light on the personality of Imam al-Hassan. For instance, they created this false persona for the Imam that portrayed him as a overindulgent and hedonistic character. Someone who was lustful, God forbid. Someone who's a pleasure seeker. Someone who sought wealth and fame and wasn't too concerned about the affairs of the nation. And as I said, they manufactured these reports en masse, on a large scale. Imagine the propaganda machine of the Umayyads was so powerful that the son of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi comes to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and he says to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, tell me, was my father a good man or an evil man? Imagine, his own son can't make that distinction. The propaganda, the false reports, the fake news was so savage, so contradictory, that his own son couldn't draw an accurate picture of his father. He couldn't come to a satisfactory conclusion. So he had to ask the Imam. Obviously, the other reason is that he considers the Imam to be the ultimate arbiter. He knows that the Imam's verdict is the final word, whatever the Imam says, which tells you how submissive to the Imam's authority this man was. Of course, you might have heard that the Imam responded to him by saying that, may Allah bestow His mercy upon your father. And it's this hadith which puts an end to all the discrepancies, all the disputes on the character and ultimate abode of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi. In other words, there might have been issues or blemishes in his past, but this hadith sets the record straight. But this is how vicious the propaganda was. Imam al-Hassan is portrayed as a hedonistic, pleasure-seeking, overindulgent person who was interested only in money, status, and carnal desires. God forbid. Equally vicious was the portrayal of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam as a subservient and meek individual. And it's this aspect, or this false portrayal of the Imam, which was perhaps more persistent. In other words, some of his own Shia perceived Imam al-Hassan to be like this. He's meek, he's submissive, he is someone who could be easily cowed and pushed aside. He's a pushover, as they say in this culture. To the extent that Al-Bukhari and others, they have reported this hadith, which is attributed to Rasulullah, and the Holy Prophet is reported to have said the following: Inna ibni hadha sayyidun. My son, Al-Hassan, is a master. So far, so good. He's a master, meaning that he should be followed, he should be obeyed, he should be given his due position and status. But listen to what the Prophet is quoted to have said afterwards. إن الحسن ابني هذا سيد ولعل الله يصلح به بين فريقين من المسلمين. And perhaps there's going to be a day when Allah uses him in order to reconcile between two warring factions within the Muslim nation. In other words, Imam al-Hassan should be obeyed. Al-Hassan should be respected. But not because he is ascribed to me, not because of his divinely given status, but because he's going to submit to the rule of Muawiyah. You see what a travesty of justice this is? Listen to Imam al-Hassan so long as he reconciles between the believers. And of course, this is a reference to the treaty or the truce that was signed between Imam al-Hassan and Muawiyah later on. In other words, if he gives in to Muawiyah and moves aside so that Muawiyah and the Umayyad dynasty could take over the leadership of the Muslim Ummah, then he is someone worthy of respect and honor. Now, we know this hadith is a fabrication quite simply and easily because it was Rasulullah himself who said in authentic reports that are scattered across the Sunni hadith corpus, when the Prophet addresses Ammar ibn Yasir and says to him, Ya Ammar, taqtuluka al-fi'atul baghiyah. O Ammar, the rebellious faction, the tyrannical army is the one that's going to kill you. If a faction is called tyrannical, baghi in Arabic refers to the worst form of tyranny. It's a synonym of dhulm. And refer to the Quran to know what dhulm means, what baghi means. If Muawiyah and his group are labeled as bughat and tyrannical and rebellious, how could the Prophet then say, my son Hassan is a good man so long as he reconciles between Muawiyah and his own camp? It makes absolutely no sense. So this portrayal, this image of Imam al-Hassan as this subservient, meek pushover was one of the greatest crimes committed against Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. Again, creating an image that, if not transfixed in the minds of every Muslim, including the Shia, at the very least, it left traces in our collective minds. Imam al-Hassan, someone who's not interested in fighting, not interested in being confrontational. He's a peaceful man. He's a pacifist. This is one of the greatest crimes committed against Imam al-Hassan. How could Imam al-Hassan be like this when he himself was approached by a man who tragically was one of his Shia, one of his followers, towards the end of his blessed life? The report says that this man came to the Imam and he said to him, لَقَدْ أَذْلَلْتَ رِقَابَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَجَعَلْتَنَا عَبِيدًا لِبَنِي أُمَيَّةِ. You have humiliated the believers and you have turned us into slaves of Bani Umayyah. Imam al-Hassan said, how? He said, when you submitted لِهَذَا الطَّاغِيَ, meaning Muawiyah, this tyrant, this despot, you submitted to him and you humiliated us. So listen to how the Imam responded to him. He said, Wallahi ma salahtuhu illa liqillatin nasir. By God, I would never have signed this treaty with Muawiyah had I had enough supporters, had I had fighters who were loyal to me. وَلَوْ كَانَ لِي أَنصَارٌ لَقَاتَلْتُهُ لَيْلِي وَنَهَارِي. And had I had individuals who were loyal to me, who would listen to me and follow my lead, I would have continued to fight him day and night. حَتَّى يَحْكُمَ اللَّهُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُ. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala settles it between us. In other words, He grants victory to the righteous and defeat to the immoral and impious.